Hi, I'm Mayor Mary McDonald from the great city of Trotwood, Ohio, and I am joining you here today for Trotwood Talks. Today, we're going to talk about everything about the 2019 Memorial Day tornadoes that devastated the city of Trotwood. I have the city manager, Quincy here with me today, and Deputy City Manager Stephanie Kellum. And we're going to talk about, from the very beginning, what happened with our city that night and where we're going to go all the way to where we are today. So I'm going to let City Manager get started talking about that, because truly everyone in the city of Trotwood knows exactly where they were at that particular time. We had just had a wonderful Memorial Day, and then that night things changed. So City Manager, let's talk about that.
Well, Mayor, thank you. Coming up on our third year anniversary of the tornado, I began to think about that night, and I remember I was at home and it was really dark outside. And I remember the police chief calling me and he said, "Hey, are you looking at the weather outside?" And I go, "Yeah, it's kind of scary." He says, "I think we're going to get hit." And I said, "You know what? It's just looking like it's coming this way." And I said, come pick me up right now, because we're going to have to get a command center open, and we're going to get hit to be ready. And all of a sudden, it just got real pitch dark.
So before the tornado even started, you already had recognized there were some things happening and we needed to prepare, because I think it was like 10:30 or so.
Yes, ma'am. It was. And we were riding in the vehicle, and I remember there were residents standing outside because it had got pitch dark, and they were going, "Help me." And we were going, "Right now, we just hold tight. We can't get to you. We had to get the command center open." And I remember looking at the police chief, and I said, "You know what? All these years of training that we've had, this is what we get paid to do now. This is it right here." And then I called the county administrator up and told him that, "Look, I think we're going to need everything in the county in terms of resources." I called the mayor and explained to her, "Hey, Mayor, this is what we got going on." The mayor said, "Look, I'm on my way." And I immediately started thinking, "Oh my goodness, how are you going to get in there?" But she got in there. And
45 minutes later, which would have taken me typically 7 minutes any other time.
Yeah, it was a scary night. And we get to the command center, and of course all the safety personnel. We have wonderful safety personnel, fire and police. They got into the field to give us an assessment of what was going on, and we got the calls back command center that said that we had people trapped in buildings, and gas lines had been blown. And so we activated our emergency response systems, and we found it. We had just coincidentally had just trained in April on emergency response, so we were well prepared and to respond to our citizens. But I remember that night seeing the devastation on our citizens' faces, and as daylight began to rise, I remember looking at the property damage and the trauma on our people's faces. And that's what I think about now. And even now, I think I suffer from something, because when I see when it starts now getting dark, before I never paid attention, now I get kind of shaken up inside.
I listen to the weather report thoroughly every single day now, for changes, because we are looking at the kind of weather that has not necessarily been the typical seasons that we typically recognize.
That's right.
Can you talk about how important the preparedness was that we were able to respond? Because many people cannot understand how it was that we were on top of this as early as we were, with as much damage that had happened to the city of Trotwood. Sure. And being clear that people recognize the city of Trotwood was hit harder than any city in Montgomery County. No matter what you hear from other people, we were hit extremely hard. And our preparedness is what really helped us to stay focused.
Yeah, I think that preparedness probably is the most important aspect of any type of response to any emergency. And I think that when we went through our tabletop exercises, we shared it with City Council. I think the mayor, the City Council understood what their roles as leaders of the community. I think the city manager down from staff people, we understood what our roles were. And that night, everybody played what their roles were. And I think as a result of that and the training, there was no confusion. Exactly. Everybody knew what they needed to do. And you get out to help our people, and we were organized. And I think if there's one thing that I learned about preparedness is organization. because when you have chaos is when you definitely need organization and leadership. And it was definitely chaotic when you see all the devastation and things like that. But because we were organized and trained, well trained, we were able to respond to our citizens in a way that I think that really saves lives too. We were able to get out there in a timely manner. When we talked to FEMA, the FEMA came in and spoke with me and the mayor, and they were trying to figure out how did we respond so well to a disaster like that, and they said they'd never seen a community respond like that. Well, that's because we trained. But the other thing that I learned from our response was that we didn't wait. What I found out when I started looking across country, because I was trying to figure out, well, what made us so different too? We trained, other people were trained too, but what made us different was this. We didn't wait till daylight.
Right.
We started right away getting in and doing search and rescue and those type of things. We had urban rescue out here, so we were able to get in. We had chainsaws, dump trucks, and we had begun geographically breaking up our city in a map. And the mayor was in the room with us, and when we were doing it and going through all of the aspects of what we're going to do. And I think having that type of organization and leadership provided the foundation for us to the response that we had. And I make suggestions to people now all the time. I say, if you don't do nothing else, plan, be prepared,
That's right.
so that everybody knows what their roles are. You know, and I remember that night in the command center. I thought it was interesting because we had just done the training in April, and it played the way it was supposed to do. You know, the mayor handled her things in terms of issuing the state of an emergency, because you know you got to do that in order to get a response from the federal government. You know, we handled our job in terms of the operations of the city, getting our safety personnel and getting them resources. One of the main things that I think the administrative staff is responsible for is getting the people on the ground resources, because you got to get into the neighborhoods. You know, we had power lines down, you had trees on the roadway, so you couldn't actually get vehicles in, so you had to have all-terrain type of vehicles and resources to get into some of the areas that were affected. So.
Because we had lots of people that came along that wanted to help, but we had to organize that help, and that help came in the area where Deputy City Manager got really busy with the work that needed to be done with the outside help and getting that to a point where it made sense, because we had, well, over 3,000 volunteers come in the city of Trotwood, and if you can imagine 3,000 volunteers with 3,000 cars, that was not going to work. So we so we had to really start thinking of what our next move was going to be. So Deputy City Manager, talk about that.
So what the city manager did was he assigned me as volunteer coordinator. He also assigned Roger Mart, who is someone that our city doesn't see often because he's the manager for the vehicles. So he's always inside. So my role was to take the calls and kind of divide the city up into quarters. Roger would then meet the volunteers at the high school, and he would give them their assignments. Thank God the schools worked with us, and what we did, instead of having 3,000 vehicles in the neighborhoods, we transported them on the buses. And we would assign them tools, gloves, bags, everything they needed, the pickers, etc. And then we used our Parks and Recreation coordinator and Cheryl Wheeler to check those volunteers in for us. And that is how we were quickly able to turn around the number of volunteers we had and complete our FEMA applications.
Okay. So once we got people into the community, they had their opportunity to serve for as long as they wanted to serve, for the amount of time they were wanting to serve, and they literally got out and did some of the very beginning works. And what does that work look like?
Mayor, I have never seen such destruction. I mean, it was truly chaotic. You had people traumatized.
Yeah.
I mean, there was debris everywhere, and it's almost like, where do I begin?
Right.
And so you began with the little things you could pick up with your hands. You just got the loose debris, the tree limbs, and things of that nature. And as the citizens began to pile those up, Public Works would come and get those and then take them to a temporary dump site. As you begin to do that over and over, then you begin to see progress. And people could see, okay, this is working. Now we're energized, and people really got into it. I mean, it was unreal. It was unbelievable. It was so loving. We heard from citizens all over the country. Some didn't even wait for us to tell them what we needed. They began sending Amazon deliveries of diapers, baby formula. I mean, just anything, water. We had so much water.
Yeah.
I mean, we had pallets of water. But it was just amazing to see the outpour of love.
Right, because one of the things that I'm very proud of is we've been very proud to have a strong faith community in our city, and they were our go-to places. They made sure that there were meals, they made sure that there was water, they made sure clothing, all of those kinds of things. I know for me, was once it was daylight, I had to get out into the community, and riding from street to street and seeing the level of devastation was unlike anything I've ever seen. But the interesting thing was, you may be on one side of the street and it's completely devastated, but you'll be on the other side of the street and not one thing had been touched. And it was amazing because people talked about that as if it were one tornado, but there were many tornadoes that hit the city of Trotwood that day. See, Manager, how many tornadoes did they talk about in the level that was?
I know at least 3 to 4 went past us over our western border. And I know that we ended up with over, I want to say 1,800 people were displaced from the city of Trotwood. 626 apartment buildings were destroyed. 1,100 total multifamily residential structures. And I remember looking at the value in a community, what that meant to us, and that was roughly around $29 million. And I'm happy to say today that we've recovered that, regained that. You know, the cost to us was around $940,000 in terms of the emergency response and what it takes to manage the cost of a disaster like that. And FEMA was wonderful. They actually came in. We were reimbursed about $700,000 of that money into the community. But, you know, looking forward now, and I know if somebody said, well, what's the challenges of that? Because most of the time, the response for a tornado recovery, generally, it's 5 to 7 years. But we were able to, we're pretty early, and I know Stephanie will talk a little bit about, I think we're around 98, 99%. But in my mind, I don't think until the last citizen that we got in the city of Trotwood is no longer struggling or have impact from the tornado, that I'm done. We still got a few people that are out there that are still getting some assistance from the tornado. So for me, I'm like, until that last person crossed the line with the rest of us, we still got work to do. So the other challenge was during that time frame, and we learned this, and this is for our residents, the challenge of insurance. You know, you would think of things, you think that most of us, we think we got insurance, we think we know, right? Well, some of our seniors have paid their houses off probably longer than I am old, and a part of that process was generally you paid your insurance during your escrow and payments and things. Well, when they paid their house off, it just never was another payment made, and then when the tornado hit, they thought they had insurance. So we had those struggles. The second struggle we were dealing with is the mental health issues. And especially now compounded with the pandemic. So those are the challenges that when you come through a tornado, you still deal with. And you know, Stephanie takes care of the vacant houses and stuff like that happen as a result of that. But I'm overall, Mayor, I think that's where we are in terms of where we are in terms of recovery, and I'm proud of that recovery in this community. So.
Exactly, and I tell you, people ask us often about the apartments and about what happened with them in terms of the devastation. And we have one apartment complex that has today it still looks like the day after the tornado. And then I want to go back and also say thank you to Governor DeWine, because the very second day after the tornado, Governor DeWine and his cabinet flew into the city of Trotwood, landed on the former mall site, and came out and toured our community with our citizens and spoke with our citizens the very next day. And while he was here, President Trump called him on the phone, and I was given the opportunity to speak with President Trump, and President Trump said he was going to make sure that Trotwood was taken care of. So I want to give a shout out in that direction, because the city of Trotwood was in fact taken care of in the presence of FEMA locating within the city of Trotwood, because typically we would have found ourselves with FEMA maybe someplace else and our folks having to go other places, but they located in our high school. Our citizens were able to fill out their claim work and get all the help and assistance they needed there. But I want to go again and talk about what happened with the devastation of the various apartment complexes, especially the one that still looks like the day after, and the fact that, you know, we've touched on the uninsured, but the underinsured.
Yes.
Absolutely. So Woodland Hills is in litigation right now. That's no secret. We've made that known. It is public record. They have 2 cases pending. So the first litigation is against the insurance company, who pretty much wanted to call their loan. The owners do have the desire to demolish and rebuild. The insurance company was not going to reimburse them for the amount of money it takes to rebuild today. In addition to that, then they now have their vendors who are against them. So they're in a lawsuit with those vendors as well.
So there's a lawsuit the city of Trotwood has with them as well?
The city of Trotwood is just a party of interest. We have not actually sued. We're a party of interest joining the suit against the insurance company, saying that you are creating a nuisance in our community. But we do have a vested interest as well with the vendors, because the vendors are now suing the owners, saying that you owe us for the debris cleanup we did do. So the owners do want to rebuild. We are hoping these cases move forward quickly. They have until June 4th to give the court an answer to the last set of inquiries, and we'll continue to watch it. Our law office is heavily engaged in this process, as are we. Our fire marshal, fire department have pointed out the concerns there. Our code enforcement and our planning and development director are closely involved. So it takes a lot of efforts to coordinate these types of cases. The same is true, if I may speak, about Consumer Square. That is another point of interest for citizens. That one is even more complicated, because we have learned that after we notified them, then they filed bankruptcy, and now it's more exacerbated because the owner is in Kiev, Ukraine. So he's at war. So that case is, God only knows, going to take how long.
Okay, so again, what we're talking about today is bringing you up to where we are with the tornado damage that happened in the city of Trotwood as we approach this third year of this. So in terms of the overall wrap up of all of this, city manager, let's talk about how we are going to put a wrap on this, because as we move forward and we talk about this tornado, we're going to be talking about it in a little different phase, because we will have closed cases, we've done the things that need to be done, and we are no longer in that preparing or repairing mode. So let's talk about that.
Well, yeah, that's a good point, Mayor. Matter of fact, I just signed in April the final closeout of the FEMA grant. And that's a long, daunting process and a lot of data keeping. And thanks to our finance department, they do a good job of taking care of us in that sense. But in terms of wraparound, I think one of the things that I learned from this response. You can always be better. And I think the one thing that I noticed was that when we were evacuating citizens from our community, we had to evacuate them outside the community. Corinthian Church and Bethesda Temple, they took in our citizens. And I thought about all the many churches we have in the city of Trotwood and what it would take to get them Red Cross certified. So I think for us as a community and us as a city, our next steps is first to make sure that we educate our community and our major faith-based players about having some place in the city of Trotwood that we can evacuate our people to. That's one. And I think number two is educating our citizens about insurance. That was so impactful that you would think, I've been doing government 32 years, it made me go back and look at my insurance, and I thought I knew. And I'm gonna tell you, when you start looking at that small print, read the small print, understand what your coverages are, because that's important. And I think doing education about that, about insurance. And the other thing is, wraparound services, is trying to get back. I think we probably still got maybe roughly around 300 people, and I'm taking that number from the census, that haven't come back yet, and I want them back. And so a lot of it has to, and I'm glad that I know you and Stephanie have been working with a long-term recovery, and part of long-term recovery is sustainability for people, and like they've been building the homes for them that come back in the city of Trotwood. I think that's part of closing out, getting the people back into the community again, because they want to come back home. And and one of the things that happens as a result of disasters like this too is housing affordability. I mean, I think everybody's paying attention to that. And I know from the mayor's office, and we talk about this all the time, about how we can affect through policy and working with developers to keep where we don't have this situation where people can't afford to live here either.
Right.
So Mayor, I guess to answer your question, I think that's all wraparound, and I think we got to look at all those angles, and I think that affordable housing is a real big issue now. I look every week, they're writing in the Sunday paper now, it's got something to do with housing. People don't have anywhere to live, and so I think that's an issue that not only we, but I can tell you this county, I don't know if we were prepared for a tornado, because there's no housing anywhere. So I think
Montgomery County, that is a conversation everywhere, where you can help people get into housing that is affordable. Because what we have seen, because of the lack, we saw rents go up higher than what we've ever seen before. And much more even in the city of Trotwood, because we do have so many people that want to locate here or want to be back here, that the outside entities that control the rents have gone to a level that really have made it very difficult for people to come back into the community and to be whole. So I don't know if there's anything else that you would like to share as we move forward. I do know that we have a number of housing opportunities opening now for our community.
Sure, absolutely.
So that people can start to be encouraged that the city of Trotwood is opening up its arms, opening up its doors, and working with developers that want to work with us to be able to maintain a proper housing stock for our community.
I would add a couple of things. Number one, we are continuing to research other funding avenues to bring affordable housing to the city of Trotwood. If people watch the news, they will see that the HUD secretary made a major announcement yesterday. So we're looking for that for single family housing. But the other thing is, I want people to really lean in to our city website, our Facebook page, or sign up for HyperReach. Because a lot of people, a few of the latecomers are saying, I didn't see the information. But we pump it out to those mass communication methods. And we really need our people to tune into those things so that they can gather information quickly and be informed.
Exactly. And I do know that if citizens have a concern, they can call my office and they will get you in touch with who the necessary person is you need to speak with. And that is 937-854-7212. Kara is there. She will take your information and forward it to the various department that you may need to speak with, because it is very important. And I know there are a lot of people that are not they're not necessarily tech savvy. They don't know how to go and get that information, but you can call to get the help and the information that you need. Anything else you want to share, City Manager?
I just want to say, you know, after the tornado and now the pandemic, and over the last decade, what the city of Trotwood has been through, and now to see the progression of prosperity that is starting to come our way, it tells me that as long as we stick together as a community, we're resilient. And we stick together, hang in there together. There's nothing nobody can do to defeat us. You know, many times people talk about what they see on the news and what people say and these perspectives. But I think what we've proven to everybody, that we can do it. And I'm proud of this community.
Absolutely. So everyone, you have heard from the 1 and 2 on the staff side. They have shared with you everything that they can share regarding how we have handled the tornado from 2019 and how we are going to continue as we wrap things up regarding that. I am very, very proud to work with them. I'm proud of the work that all of our staff has done to take care of the people of the city of Trotwood. We love you and we care about you. We thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you on the next time for Trotwood Talks. Have a great day. Bye-bye.